Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're so excited. And we're excited because this bootcamp series came about from Lizzie and I having a conversation of how can we show up for our teacher community in a way that is supportive and impactful and of value, because what each and every one of you do as teachers is so valuable and so impactful to the world. And so it's our mission and our passion to support you throughout your journey. And as Lizzie says, beYogi handles the more practical business side of that support. And me personally, as well as my platforms of Yogi Approved and YA classes, are here to support you in your personal practice, in your teaching career, and as an individual in this world. So that's why we are here today in a nutshell. And as Lizzie mentioned, I am the founder of an online yoga platform and an online yoga membership platform as well. And I've been in the game for 7 years of this business, and I've been teaching yoga for over a decade. And I'm so passionate about yoga, about teaching and facilitating this incredible practice, but also equally, I am passionate about supporting yoga teachers like you in your journey. So without further ado, Lizzie, if you're okay, I'm just gonna jump on in. And as I mentioned in the comments, if you have questions or if you would like to just be like, oh my gosh, yes, I've dealt with this, or I've had this experience, what do you think? Please feel free to share any and all the things in the chat. This is an interactive workshop and we are here to connect. So I would love to hear all of those things from you, okay? Now, this second half of the class will be a guided journaling practice. And the first part of the class is going to be chock full of great information and interesting kind of points for you to chew on. So I encourage you to have your notebook or journal or something to write on as we go. And so let's start by getting a nice comfortable seat. I'm sitting in a chair. If you want to do the same or be on your mat, whatever you would like, just get nice and comfortable and grounded. And we're all just going to take a nice deep breath in and out to start. So let's all take a deep inhale through the nose, eyes opened or closed. And a deep exhale out your mouth, say, ah, and just let it go. Good. 2 more just like that. Deep inhale breath. Deep exhale. And last one, here we go. Inhale breath. And exhale. Awesome. All right. So get nice and comfortable. Have a little glass of water nearby if you'd like. I'm going to take a sip myself. And let's dive in. So this is part 2 of a 3-part series that I've been offering on the beYogi platform. And if you didn't take part 1, you are signed up so you can access that recorded session, but it's not like you had to take part 1 to understand part 2. So part 2 is totally separate, and it is the concept of bringing mindfulness into your yoga business, into your yoga career. And I also want to add to that title, this is really where what we're talking about today is the intersection of mindfulness and or spirituality with business and our overall financial success. Because as yoga instructors, we are truly toggling between the spiritual, the sacred, and this mindfulness component that I'm going to be introducing today, with the real reality of we need to make money, we've got bills to pay, we're running a business. So this is a very interesting intersection, and I'm really looking forward to diving into it with you today, because it's something that when I first started teaching, it was a little confounding. And I honestly had struggles with it, like many yoga teachers, right? How much do I charge? Do I charge? How do I advocate for myself? How do I ask for what I want? How do I negotiate, right? So any and all of these questions really boiling down to the question of how do we go about a real world business approach with a yoga mindset while maintaining integrity and authenticity of our yogic path? So that's the question that we as teachers often ask, and that we are going to discuss and answer today. All right, so really what we're addressing, right? Business and yoga, or our yoga teaching career, with being the facilitators and gatekeepers of the practice, there's two sides of this coin, right? There's two sides of the coin of we're running a business and we're facilitating something that's very sacred. So it brought to mind a saying that I've heard often throughout my life, which is, do not be so heavenly minded that you are no earthly good, and do not be so earthly minded that you are no heavenly good. And so what that really boils down to in meaning to me is we're walking the middle path, right? We don't want to be so much in our crown chakras that we are forsaking our root chakras, or vice versa, right? Because the root chakra is so connected to our sense of security, our career, our finances. And then the crown chakra is so much connected to our intuition, to our connection to oneness and all that is beyond us. And so to me, that saying is kind of talking about this connection between the two and how we strike a middle path so that we can maintain equilibrium in both sides. So with that said, it starts with asking for what you're worth. This is a common situation for all yoga teachers, of whether you're first starting out or whether you've been in the game for a while now. We need to show up for ourselves. We need to ask for what we're worth and not sell ourselves or our teaching community short by not charging enough, right? So this is something that we deal with often, money. And yeah, I'm starting it right off with money because this is a big one. This is a big one when we're talking about business. And we as yoga teachers know that you walk into a gym or many yoga studios and they're not offering very much in terms of compensation. And so how do we toggle that line? Right, an incredible yoga teacher based out of Colorado, Gina Caputo, did an interview on Yogi Approved several years ago talking about the damage that offering free yoga does for the yoga community. And I'll be honest, at first I thought, well, I am so committed to keeping yoga accessible for everyone that I feel like free yoga should be out there because people need to be able to access it. What if they can't afford it? You know, there's all these factors. But what she was getting at was, well, when we are not charging for our services, we are doing a disservice to all the other yoga instructors out there, including ourselves, because we have invested a lot of time and money in our trainings, in our ongoing education, and in getting our yoga teaching career up and running. Whether you have an entire yoga business like myself, or if you are teaching yoga in other owners' studios, the point remains the same of asking for what you're worth and not selling yourself short. Now, the answer to that of what you're worth is going to be different for each and every one of us based on a myriad of factors. But what we're getting into here is the mindfulness aspect of going inward and knowing what our value is, what we want to ask for, and what our non-negotiables are. Okay, so this is just an overview. Don't worry, we're going to dive more into it. But this is talking about what we want to do first is get really clear on our why, on what it is we're doing, how we're doing it, and why, right? So I'm going to tie that into the next point of a business of teaching yoga, which is self-promotion and marketing. Another aspect of the business side of teaching that can be a little challenging, right? If you're anything like me, and feel free to drop a comment in the comment box so I can see, you are so passionate about teaching, about connecting with other people on the mat, about sharing this incredible practice with others. And that's great. But then when it comes to the business side, the marketing side, it can feel a little scary, a little icky. Sometimes it's very hard for us to talk about ourselves, to promote ourselves, to put ourselves out there in a way that's vulnerable, that's saying, hey, here's who I am, here's what I've created. Will you please support me? Will you please be a part of it? That is so scary. It can be very daunting, and it is very vulnerable. And as yoga teachers, we're totally familiar with vulnerability, right? I was just talking yesterday with someone who had recently gone through her YTT, and she was sharing how, you know, in addition to all of the amazing knowledge and experiences that you gain throughout this training, one of the key takeaways and one of the most impactful experiences of that training is being vulnerable enough to stand up in front of the rest of your YTT group and teach a class for maybe the first time ever, Oh my goodness. But my point is, we are fully capable of being vulnerable, but so often, and especially if you're like me, I got dogs in the house. I'm sorry, y'all. Paulo, it's okay. I bet you it's the mail being dropped off. Hey. So if you're anything like me, it can feel a little daunting at first. Paulo, sorry, you guys. But pause just 1 second. Hey, go on now. Go on. Okay. If you got dogs or kids, you'll get it. So anyway, back to where we were. Self-promotion and marketing is necessary. It is key to a successful business. And so do not sell yourself short by making yourself small, by not being willing to put yourself out there, right? So while it is necessary, the how of going about self-promotion and marketing, along with your why, is all entirely up to you, and it should reflect you authentically. And so this is a really key point in, yeah, we need to self-promote, we need to market our offerings, but the way in which we do it is the fun part, because there is no right and wrong here. It's really up to you and how you want to let yourself shine the most. And so that's where that vulnerability comes in that I'm talking about. Being vulnerable with your presence and being vulnerable for your students. Because when you are vulnerable for your students, you're giving them permission to be vulnerable too, to open up, to be honest with what they're going through, how they're feeling, right? But we don't need to be vulnerable in how we run our business, because the way that we run our business is rooted in the how and the why. And this is where our mindfulness comes in again. First of all, getting very clear on your why. Why is it that you want to be a yoga teacher? And why is it that you are pursuing this yoga career? And then the how. How are you going to go about it? What's your niche? What's your strategy? These are all the dots that you get to connect and color in for yourself. So that part's exciting. And I think that it's really important to focus on this mindset of, how are you approaching this? Are you approaching it like it's a chore or a burden or something to dread or even fear? Or are you flipping that mindset script for yourself and saying, you know what, this is so exciting. I have put in the work and now it's my chance to shine and to answer these fun questions for myself and then put it out there and connect with those who are looking for exactly what I have to offer, because that's the other key. You've got to believe in yourself and know that what you have to offer is what someone else out there needs. And that's amazing. That's exciting. So let that sink in for a minute. That's exciting. You specifically have gifts to offer that other people need. Yeah, amazing. So all of this is not black and white, my friends. And this is where mindfulness comes in. This is where the mindfulness, which is a full sense of awareness of yourself, of who you are, of where you are in your yoga career, that comes into play. So this is where we start to look at what is in alignment with what we're seeking to create and to build. It is saying yes to what aligns with your values. And this is why it's so important to get clear on your why, because your why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why am I so passionate about teaching yoga? Becomes your mission statement. And once you have a mission statement, right? Like every company will basically start their business plan with a mission statement that encompasses their core values, beliefs, guiding principles, as well as the mission of why they're creating a business around it. And so once you have this clear in your mind, your mission statement, it becomes easier to understand and sort of filter through the opportunities that come your way. Because just because you get offered 10 opportunities for teaching yoga doesn't necessarily mean that all 10 are a good fit for you, are in alignment for you, and are what are ultimately serving your highest good in your yoga teaching career. And that's another point, right? So far we have discussed the financial aspect of teaching and currency and your finances and asking for what you're worth and knowing what you're worth. We've also talked about self-promotion and marketing and how important and integral this is to your yoga teaching career. But equally as important is the way in which you go about it, rooted from that place of authenticity and in what you really want to be bringing to the community. Now, finally, what we're talking about now is opportunities that arise, right? So when you are asked to teach, whether it's a one-time pop-up event, whether it's a weekly class in a yoga studio or at a retreat or a festival, whatever it may be, it's important to be able to take a step back and truly weigh this opportunity and decide how best to move forward. Again, getting back to that mission statement, right? Your why can be that internal compass to guide you where you're going. Now I want to talk about when we say no. Exercising your no muscle. This is one of my favorite sayings and favorite principles that when I learned, I was a yes person to a fault. And the no muscle is a term that comes from one of my favorite motivational authors, Elanya Van Zant. She is amazing. If you haven't heard of her, I'm just going to chat her name in the comments here. She is so inspiring, and I just cannot recommend her books or following her on social or her podcast enough. As yoga teachers, it's so important to keep our personal cups of inspiration filled, and that woman will fill your cup right up. So anyway, what Elanya Van Zant says is it's very important, just as important as it is to say yes, to say no, to exercise our no muscles. And what she says that I love so much more is it's important that we are able to stand in our yes and for our no. Woo! It is important for us to stand in our yes and for our no. And so what that's saying is, as important as it is to be able to recognize an amazing opportunity that is truly in alignment with your core beliefs and your mission, it's equally as important to recognize when it is not and to be able to say no. Whew, it's a big one, right? And that takes practice, but it's really important. And it's because there are things that may not serve you, your goals, or your career. And while I often recommend for brand new teachers when you're first starting out to say yes, to take all the opportunities, right? Meaning it's important when you're just starting out to teach as much as possible, to get as much experience under your belt as possible, because this is what helps us grow as teachers, to gain more confidence, more experience, more knowledge in order to provide the most beneficial, safe, and enjoyable experience for our students. So that brings us to knowing your value and knowing your worth, because oftentimes there will be opportunities that come your way that, hey, maybe it's not a paid gig, or maybe it's not, you're not going to get rich off of this opportunity, but it's an opportunity for personal growth, or it's an opportunity for incredible networking, or it's a resume builder, right? These are the opportunities that arise that you want maybe to say yes to, that would be beneficial to say yes to, whether or not they are meeting that financial aspect. But there are other times when, and another example is, hey, you're brand new in the space, you want to throw a free event so people can get a taste for what you offer and they'll come back for more, right? That's a great opportunity. But then the other side of that token is you get kind of caught up in this expectation of it's going to be free, and now all of a sudden you don't know how to transition your students from never paying for an event to paying, right? So we're kind of weighing out those options in our minds. Now, another experience of standing in your yes and for your no is being very aware of when something is no longer working out and you need to pivot, right? So often when we teach for studios, for example, maybe the environment shifts and it no longer feels like it's in alignment with where we're at in our practice. It's okay to say, you know what, thank you so much for this time here, I'm going to move on. That's okay. It's also okay to realize, you know what, this is actually a detriment to my end goal or to my integrity as an instructor. And learning to recognize when something is of value or to your detriment, and to move and make decisions accordingly. So I'm assuming all of this makes sense and we're tracking so far because I'm not seeing any questions. So again, feel free to drop questions in the comments as we go here. But here's the other side of the coin, because what we're talking about thus far is the first side of the coin, where perhaps we're not fully ready yet to ask for what we want, or we're not fully there yet in recognizing our value, knowing our worth, and acting on it, right? The other end of this coin is too much in the business side to where our personal practice starts to suffer. So there's always the challenge as teachers, again, whether this is your first month of teaching or your 20th year of teaching, there's always the challenge of remaining rooted in our personal practice while handling our business. And half of that means literally our personal practice suffers because we are caught up in the teaching side and we are no longer making as much time for our personal practice. The other part of this is becoming so business-minded that we are no longer, right? Like that business-minded, that earthly minded, that we are no longer as much spiritually minded, and we start to lose touch of that yogic path. And I also want to chime in here that if we ever do fall off course to either side, that's okay. Number one, we're human. Number two, this is all part of the process. And number three, this is the practice. This is the journey. Just as when we are yoga students and we are showing up for ourselves, our bodies, and our practice every day, open minds, as teachers, part of our practice is this learning, this growth, this one step back, two steps forward, or vice versa, right? So never being hard on yourself if you're listening and you're saying, ooh, that's me, or oh, I'm there right now. Great, I'm glad, because this is how we work through it. We're working through it together, which is a great feeling. Plus, this is helping us move forward stronger for it. Okay, so the opposite end of the spectrum, as I said, is that we're so business-minded or focused on the business side that we begin to lose sight of what's important or why you started to begin with, which is why not only is it so important to have a mission statement, but it's really, really nice to then be able to go back and revisit it often. As a personal practice, which became inextricably connected to my yoga teaching practice, I, every year on my birthday, will write out my personal credo. And your credo is essentially a list of, or a statement of your moral beliefs, of what beliefs that you hold strongly to your identity that help you navigate decisions and life's challenges as they arrive. And so every year when I sit down to write this credo, I start by reading my previous credo. And sometimes I'm like, well, copy paste, that's the same. And other times I'm like, oh my goodness, that was 1 year ago. That feels like that was a lifetime ago. My new credo now is, so it's amazing to watch ourselves grow and evolve and also always come home, right? Because both are simultaneously true. Now, this is where our middle path approach comes in. And I love this middle path concept because it is connected to mindfulness. When we show up mindfully and we look at our yoga career through this mindful, loving lens, we are able to approach it with the middle path, right? So neither extreme, neither side of the coin that we've been talking about, we're finding kind of that middle ground. So 3 kind of key parts to maintaining our middle path with yoga teaching. The first is maintaining our personal practice, like I said, making this a non-negotiable. For years, my personal practice would suffer and I constantly felt like I was just playing catch up, right? Fine, I'll get on the mat tomorrow. I wasn't able to do it today. That's not great anyway, because what is that doing? I'm beating myself up. I'm getting all in my head about it. That's not enjoyable. But making it a non-negotiable, I realized one day, Ashton, why will I always be right on time for any meeting that I scheduled in my calendar? And yet every single time I set the intention to step on my mat, I somehow find a way to deprioritize that. When we show up for ourselves and make it a non-negotiable though, we schedule it in just like we would those meetings, and we stay true to ourselves in the practice. Now, I'm not saying you need to get on your mat 7 days a week or do anything that's completely unrealistic to your current life, but to maintain that consistency goes so far in your practice. Number 2 is your purity of heart, right? That intention. Why is it that we're doing it? and what is our intention behind it. So when we check in with our intention and with that concept of, is this in alignment? Often that is how we're keeping ourselves on track of that middle path. And then finally, number 3 is staying engaged, right? So kind of walking between those two extremes, staying engaged in both sides, and also from our connection to ourselves through our intentions and staying really clear on them, as well as our connection to our community, maintaining our personal practice, as well as finding that balance in our teaching. And so again, when we can establish a personal practice non-negotiable, when we can maintain our purity of heart through our intention and alignment check-ins, and then when we also can remain engaged in the form of our connection to ourselves and our community, we are able to really step into and then maintain this middle path approach to bringing mindfulness into our yoga career. All right, my friends. Well, that was the first half of today's workshop. Grab a sip of water with me. Cheers. Well done. Again, I invite you to leave any questions in the comments or share your thoughts, or if you had any experiences that you would like to share. And then when you're ready, if you haven't grabbed it already, let's pick up our writing utensil and our journal or note-taking platform of choice. I'm always so old school and traditional. Everything is paper for me, my journal, my planner. And so I always think about how most people are more digital and technologically advanced than I am. So if you're doing this on a computer or device, awesome. So what we're going to do now is a guided journaling practice. And we're going to kick it off and transition into it by a short guided breath work and meditation to allow ourselves to, first of all, let this information continue to soak in, and also transition our minds from the learning and listening now to the journaling and reflecting. All right, so I'm sure you're already there, but finding a nice comfortable seat. If you're on the floor, perfect. If you're in a chair, I just ask that your feet are planted on the floor because we want a part of our body to be connected to the floor and the earth beneath us. Okay. If you would like to close your eyes, wonderful. And if not, just take a nice soft gaze in front of you, kind of letting your eyes zone out of focus. And we're going to take several rounds of simple box breathing. We will inhale for a count of 5 and hold for a count of 2 at the top, and then exhale for a count of 5 and hold for a count of 2 at the bottom. Okay, and I'll guide us through it, but just so you know the rhythm. Hands are resting in your lap here, and we'll be breathing in and out through the nose. Also, I like to add Ujjayi as another layer onto this box breathing exercise. So if you would like to incorporate Ujjayi breathing by constricting the back of your throat, feel free. Totally an option. Okay, here we go. With your inhale through your nose, we breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold for 2. And exhale out the nose for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 2. And inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold for 2. Exhale out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 2. And inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Holding 2. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 2. Inhaling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold for 2 and exhale on your own for 5. Hold for 2 and inhale on your own to 5. Hold for 2. Exhale on your own for 5. And we'll go several more times through on your own, holding for 2, inhaling for 5, holding for 2, and exhaling for 5. One more round of each, inhale and exhale. No rush. But once you're done, just remain seated. Allow your breathing to return to its normal pace. Now, as you continue to breathe deeply here, feel the bottoms of your feet or whatever part of your body that's connected to the floor and the earth beneath you. Feel that connection to the floor, noticing the texture, if it's hard or soft, if it's warm or cold. And then with your next inhale breath, pull your awareness up your body, scanning your legs. Pulling your awareness with your next inhale up through the hips, the abdomen, the torso, landing at the heart center. With your next inhale, fill your entire heart center with oxygen and with bright white light. And with your next breath, pull your inhale with that white light up through your throat chakra, activating your personal self-talk, your ability to speak and ask for what you want, your ability to know and say what you need. And with your next inhale, pull your breath and your awareness and this beautiful white light up through your face, your mouth, your nose, your eyes, all the way up and through the crown of your head, sitting up nice and tall. And with your next breath, focusing on your third eye chakra, your heart chakra, your throat, and your crown chakra all together. All these chakras coming into alignment for you. Now finally, let's take another deep inhale. And with your exhale, send this awareness all the way back down, out the bottoms of your feet, and inhale, bring it all the way back up and out through the crown of your head. Enveloping ourselves in this beautiful breath and this beautiful light energy. And we'll just sit for a final moment of stillness here. Perhaps you're envisioning this white light all around you, continuing to focus on your breath. And when you're ready, let's take a final round of breath together. Inhale deep through your nose. And this time, open your mouth. Sigh it out. When you're ready, you can softly open your eyes. Let's take a minute, maybe some head and neck rolls. Maybe you wiggle fingers and toes, anything to bring your awareness back into the space. That was beautiful. Very nice. All right. Well, we are now ready to enter the guided journaling portion of our class. So grab your journals when you're ready, and we'll begin. Okay. So my first question for you, and you can jot this down any way you'd like, is what is your why? What is your why? Now, again, you can jot down a bullet pointed list. You can write a paragraph. You can write a few sentences that stand alone, whatever works best for you. What is your why? If you're already writing, wonderful. For anyone looking for a little more context, a little more support in getting started, let's go back to the concept of knowing our why from class today. So when we talk about self-promotion and marketing, number one, it's really important to know our why so we can speak from that place and we can be of service from that place, right? It's also important to know our why from that mindfulness perspective of being able to honestly recognize when an offering is in alignment with our teaching, our career, and our goals and our why, and when perhaps it's not, and we're better off saying no. So what is your why? Now, as you continue to write, just know that you'll have several minutes to complete each writing prompt. And if you need more time, just be sure to write down the question so you can revisit and expand on your answer later. And as Lizzie also mentioned in the comments, this recording will be sent to all of you after class today, so you can always revisit it. All right, final 30 seconds for now of what is your why for teaching? For teaching currently, because this also could be quite a different answer from what your why was when you got out of teacher training, and that's okay. Okay, moving on to question number 2. This is a fun one. It's always important as teachers to sing our praises because we deserve it and because there's a lot of praise to be had. So this is a confidence builder. List your 5 favorite strengths of yourself as a yoga teacher. Another way to put it, list your 5 top strengths that you feel your students would list about you as their teacher. So what are your 5 strengths as a yoga instructor? Don't overthink it. It's one of those things where it's a stream of consciousness exercise. Just allow it to flow. And who said you have to stop at 5? I hope there's someone out there who's just writing a page full right now. But I will hold you to that minimum of at least 5. So once again, one last time, what are your 5 strengths as a yoga instructor? Or worded differently, if you were to ask your students what they would say are your top 5 strengths as their teacher, what would those be? Final minute here. And for those of you who are done, just take a nice deep breath, maybe close your eyes and take a very short little personal meditation break. Take a nice big sip of water. I lovingly invite you to not check your phone. Only because I know that would be my first go-to impulse. And I always try to think, you know what, would my 30 seconds be better served just taking a few deep breaths and a few sips of water? Probably. All right, let's wrap that one up as we prepare to move into our next question. So we just listed our 5 strengths. Now let's list the top 5 values that you hold as a yoga teacher. What are your top 5 values as a yoga teacher? So your values could be cultivating community, always making your classes and your students feel very seen, welcome, included. So what are your top 5 values as a teacher? This could be a bullet point list. It doesn't have to stop at just 5. And again, if you're writing, if you're inspired, perfect. This is for the people who might be wanting a little more. So another way of looking at this are, what are the characteristics that you possess as a yoga instructor through the lens of your core beliefs, right? So integrity, good. Hello, welcome. I see we just had a new joiner. Thank you for joining us and for being here. We are currently in the middle of our guided journaling. So if you're able to grab a piece of paper and a pen or whatever you'd like to take your notes on, we are writing down our reflections on these prompts. And currently, the prompt we're on is listing our top 5 values as a yoga instructor. So I'll give you a little bit more time, and for our new arrival, plus for anyone who's still looking for a little more inspiration, we talked about values through the lens of mindfulness, of being very mindful of our mission statement or our why as a yoga instructor, as a way of being able to know when something is in alignment with our yoga teaching career and when something is not. And so our values come into play here when we stay really clear in what it is that we stand for and what our main goals and objectives are as teachers. Just another 30 seconds here. All right, so we'll wrap that one up for now and move into one of the big dogs of our guided journaling today, which is asking, what is your mission statement as a yoga teacher? I've been hinting around, I've been beating around that bush all class here. So what is your mission statement as a yoga teacher? And welcome, I see we have another new joiner. Hello, hello. So if you're already writing, wonderful. If you're just joined us, we are in the middle of our guided journaling session. So grab your journal or something to write with. And we are now thinking about what our mission statement is as yoga teachers. And if you already have one and you're very, very clear on that, awesome. And also I invite you to write it down and reflect on that and kind of audit it through the lens of what we spoke on today. And do you still feel great about it? Which if you do, wonderful. I'm not saying you shouldn't, or perhaps there could be an area where you can add on to, shift. It's just an opportunity to look upon our current status of our yoga teaching career through an objective and heightened view, that 30,000 foot view. So what is your mission statement? And as we discussed during the first part of class, our mission statement is essentially our why. Our why did we decide on this path? Why are we continuing to show up for ourselves and our community as yoga teachers? What are your core values, your core beliefs, and the main objectives that you hold around those values and beliefs that you created your yoga business for. A big piece of mine is community, being of service, showing up and uplifting others. What is your mission statement? And just to take the pressure off, if there's anyone feeling like they need to perfect and finalize their mission statement right here, you don't, not at all. This is a really fun exercise in awareness and in laying down the groundwork or relaying the foundation or just auditing. So if you want to be jotting out your mission statement or even just a few bullet points that would be of what you would want to include in your mission statement to kind of marinate on and revisit. Give you a little longer here. All right. Okay, so we're going to put that one down for now, and we'll move into the final question before our homework. Uh-oh, we have homework. Ashton, no one told me about that. Don't worry, it's fun. All right, the final question is, what is an area in your career currently that could benefit from a more middle path approach? So what is an area in your yoga career currently that could benefit more from a middle path approach? So for those of you just joining, or for anyone who would like a little more context of that, we discussed taking the middle path in our teaching career as a way of being able to toggle between the spiritual, sacred aspect of being a gatekeeper to the practice of yoga with the real world business side of having a career. And so our middle path is not being so spiritually minded that the business aspect suffers, and not being so business minded that that sacred component of the practice suffers. And so the middle path approach is striking an equilibrium between the two. And this is where our mindfulness comes in again, to be able to check in with ourselves and see, where can we better show up for ourselves in a way that's not so extreme and cultivates a little more balance in our career? If that's making sense. If you need me to clarify that, I know that's a lot, please drop it in the comments, my friends. So an example that I would like to share for this middle path question, what's an area where we can bring more middle path approach into, is when we talked about how it's important to maintain our personal practice, and how for so many of us as teachers, our personal practice can suffer when we are so caught up in the teaching that we are no longer or not regularly making the time for ourselves to be getting on the mat and filling up our cups. So just another moment here. While you're finishing up, I'll just drop these questions into the comments just so you have them all. All right. Now, again, I've added the questions to the comments. So if you're finishing up or if you wanted to revisit any of them, you can reference the comments, excuse me, and feel free to revisit this after class or at any time as you continue to fill this in. This is meant to be sort of an ongoing reflection process. But now the moment that you've all been waiting for, because I said the word homework, so now everyone's like, what's going on with this, is we want to get all the way back to that initial question that we started today's workshop off with, which is, how do we go about a real world business approach with a yoga mindset while maintaining integrity and authenticity in our yogic path? Again, how do we walk that middle path? And so for our homework today, if you choose to accept it, is to think about, or of course you can write it down and journal about it, how can you bring more mindfulness to your overall teaching career? How can you bring more mindfulness to your overall teaching career? So I invite you to map that out, whether it's jotting a few ideas down in your journal or just taking some time in reflection or meditation to think on it and begin to visualize it. And then I invite you to schedule, just like we did our personal practice, right? By making our personal practice a non-negotiable, I invite you to schedule the small steps that you'll need to take in order to get there. So for example, let's just continue using this personal practice example of if you answered our last question, which is what's an area that we can bring benefit from a more middle path approach? If it's that your personal practice has been lacking recently, then the small steps we could take are, we could schedule in 2 evenings a week to start, where we take a 30-minute class, or we just do a 30-minute free flow on our mats. It could be looking up a studio if there's one around and you're comfortable going currently, and finding a teacher once a week that you would like to go and practice with. Maybe it's you're feeling really hungry for more knowledge and continuing education. So you decide that it's about time to enroll in a short continuing education course. Maybe you just want to pick up a book, Light on Yoga, or any yoga book that speaks to you and inspires you, and start there. So again, your homework is, again, doesn't matter how you do it, write it down, reflect on it, map it out in your head. How can you bring more mindfulness to your career? And then once you answer that question, map it out and schedule small steps to get there. Small steps are key. If you're type A like me, all you want to do is jump from A to Z. But don't cheat yourself. Take the small steps. They lead to big results. They don't burn you out. They help you get to where you're going right on time. All right, now, if you are jotting that down, I'm just going to take a final moment here to write down the last 2 questions in the comments. And hi, Lizzie, welcome back, love. Right on time. We're all wrapping up here. Okay, so the questions are now all in the comments, and I'm just typing out the homework. So with our few final minutes here, I feel like Lizzie has some things to say, but this is also a great opportunity to jump in if you had any last minute questions or anything that you would like to share. And I also just wanted to acknowledge that we had some more people popping in towards the end. It's so good to see you all here. Thank you for joining. And again, you can watch the beginning all recorded after this. So you're perfectly right where you need to be. I'm just going to finish writing this down. Lizzie, if you'd like to unmute yourself, love.
Yeah, thank you, Ashton, so much for a beautiful, wonderful, informative workshop. I was in the background doing everything on my own as well. So I had my own workshop in a sense. So again, thank you all for joining. We will be sending out the recording today. So make sure you check it out again. If you weren't able to finish, you had to leave early, or you just joined, we will make sure to send out this recording today ASAP. And that will be to your direct email that you registered to. And I wanted to also remind you all to sign up for our final workshop, which will happen in about 2 weeks. I'm going to drop in the registration link as well into the chat if you want to just take a quick second to do that. But we're very excited for this final workshop with Ashton, and it has been amazing. So to connect with us, definitely check out yogiapproved.com. Check out Ashton's Instagram. I am Ashton August at yogiapproved. You have a bunch of different ones, Ashton. But where you will find her, you'll find everything else. If you have questions about beYogi, check us out at beyogi.com. And yeah, we are super excited to do this again one more time, and we hope you all have been enjoying it so far. So Ashton, if you have any final words, we'd love to hear them, but just definitely want to thank you for your time today.
Yes, thank you so much. And I just want to express my immense gratitude to each and every one of you for showing up, not just because this brings me so much joy to have these workshops and to host these types of conversations, but also because it's so important that each and every one of you are taking steps to fill up personally and professionally and feel inspired and also supported. So it just means the world to us that you're here. Thank you so much for that. And as Lizzie said, I would love to see you for round 3. I would love to have you back for that last workshop in our 3-part series. So thank you so much again, you guys. I really appreciate it.